Hi everyone, and welcome back to Pause for Self-Care. A big welcome to any new subscribers. And yeah, I appreciate you all, the OGs and the newbies. Thank you for being here today. Today's subject is actually an important one because not only can childhood trauma survivors use it, or should I say friends of childhood trauma survivors use it, but because we live in such a society at the moment where there's so much trauma happening, you could use this for a friend who perhaps experienced a hijacking, a robbery, any kind of trauma.
In all of us, in our hearts, there's love and light that we must realize. We need to feel, we need to use this warmth that could make bright our lives. In all of us, in our hearts, there's love and light that we must realize. We need to feel.
Before we get into it, I just wanted to add, we have no electricity. There's a fault in the area, and then there'll be load shedding. So I can't put my lighting on, so you don't get to see my face today. It will be like a podcast recording with some beautiful imagery. So yeah, now we can get into it. How can you help somebody who has experienced trauma? Now, like I said in my introduction, this can be somebody who has experienced trauma as a child and is now an adult. So a friend of yours in this situation. It can be somebody who experienced trauma recently. It's all focused around trauma. To start off, it can be really hard if someone you care about is struggling with the effects of trauma, because you don't really know what to say. Some of the things you say, as well-intentioned as they are, might be triggering. But the ways in which you can help are so simple that you honestly don't need to worry at least 60% of the time. So let's give you a few tips on what to do. Just an extra little disclaimer over here. When somebody experiences trauma, flashbacks and triggers can happen time and time again. You can just think that you healed, and then something crops up and you're feeling depressed, and those flashbacks come back, so on and so forth. So yeah, in my opinion, because of my childhood trauma, I re-experience things as well as learn new parts of me that aren't healed. So yeah, it's an ongoing experience of healing, and I'd just like you, as the person trying to help, to remember that. The most important thing and the most simplest thing that you can do for a trauma survivor is listen to them. You might be unsure of what to say or do. You know, the words just sometimes don't come. And if you're not sure what to say, just listen. Give them time. Sometimes they might not really, be ready to talk. Sitting in silence is the most powerful thing that you have. All you have to say is, I'm right here for you. or just put your arm around them if they feel safe with that. Put your hand on theirs if they feel safe with that. And go with what feels safe to them. But listening is so important. So, when it comes to listening, give them time. Let them talk at their own pace. It's so important not to pressure or rush them, because, you can feel more triggered if you pressured, because trauma is pressure, and you could possibly be taking them back to that place rather than helping them heal from it. So yeah, silence is sometimes the best. Try to respect what they are choosing to share rather than asking lots of questions. Once again, those questions can sometimes trigger things, so feel out where they are and listen to what they're saying and go with that. Accept their feelings. You need to allow them just to be upset about what has happened. It's so important to feel your feelings, because if you don't feel your feelings, you bottle them up and they boil up inside. I was actually listening to Dr. Kalinda Linda, and she explained like a panic attack as a pot of boiling water on the stove with the lid on. It boils and boils and boils and boils until it absolutely boils over. And that's what happens when you don't feel your feelings, as much as that same analogy works for a panic attack. Don't blame them or criticize their reactions. You might wonder why they didn't do something differently, but they survived however they could at the time. Now, for domestic violence survivors, why didn't they leave earlier? Seems to be the thing. But we have to take a step back as somebody who did not go through it. Well, look, I went through it, so I know. But if you didn't go through it, you've got to take a step back. And you've just got to say, look, I wasn't there. Let me just validate their experiences and their reactions. Use the same words that they use. People vary in how they prefer to describe their experiences. So whether they choose to talk about something as being a victim or a survivor, that's up to them. And we don't victim shame here. And that starts with, if you feel that you are a victim, you are a victim. And you can't turn around and say to somebody, stop playing the victim, because you haven't experienced what they did. You get to the point of feeling like a survivor and feeling stronger when you get to that point, not when everybody else does. Don't dismiss their experiences. For example, don't tell them not to worry about things, or that it could be worse. This isn't usually helpful to hear. So try to remember that people can't choose what they find traumatic and how that trauma affected them. So it's like the saying I used in a previous video. Somebody who experienced something less traumatic can't feel as much as somebody who experienced something more traumatic. No, that's not how it works. If you experience something traumatic, that is your experience, and you are allowed to have the feelings that you have. You're allowed to have bad days, and you're allowed to have good days. Those good days can just be your mind helping you heal by masking what went on. So when you are actually ready to experience it, you can. Only give advice if you're asked to. They might prefer to simply hear that you believe them and that are there for them. Like I said earlier, sometimes they just want silence. You know, they don't want to hear, you know, tomorrow will be better. Sometimes they just want to feel freaking sad and hopeless and have somebody hold them and allow them to feel sad and hopeless. And that in its own is exceptionally healing. People accepting me and accepting my show of vulnerability, talking about my trauma, allowing me to have that space to talk, and then validating that my feelings are okay. Oh gosh, I actually cannot tell you how much that means. And now that I'm a support group leader, I've said it so many times in the last few months, when I speak about something and like something bothers me, and then I speak to somebody and they validate how I feel. It's so refreshing just to have that validation that I'm not going crazy, that my feelings are okay to experience for my healing journey. Now, for somebody who's been through trauma, they really want to have someone close to them to be vulnerable with. And there's so many times that people will say, you know, I couldn't be vulnerable. They didn't allow me to be. And it's the exact opposite thing. And all they want is that validation that what they went through might not have been okay, but their feelings about it are okay. Also, a note here, when somebody speaks about their trauma, they might seem unemotional, they can seem casual, they can't even smile or laugh. And for you watching this, you think, wow, they went through something traumatic and this is how they are reacting to it. You think, you know, this is like strange and unnatural. But in fact, it's actually really common. It happens because the trauma causes such intense feelings that your mind kind of cuts off or dissociates you from your emotions. It's kind of your brain, like I said earlier, protecting you from what you went through, so you don't need to experience it over and again. So yeah, if you feel that someone is speaking to you and they feel, you know, how they coming across doesn't feel right, just listen. Look, of course, we have some people who are really dodgy out there and, you know, sociopaths, psychopaths. But this is for somebody who's experienced trauma, so we're not talking about those people here. Learn their triggers. It might help to ask if any situations, conversations, areas might trigger flashbacks, or of course difficult feelings. Like, let me bring up my daughter's accident, for example. That was traumatic for her. We did not pass the accident scene while she was still very new after coming out of hospital for the first time. We waited until she was ready to go there, because it was quite triggering going past even near to the area. So I think it's very important to know triggers like that, and try to avoid those situations. For me, as a childhood trauma survivor, I feel triggered by people who kind of treat me in the same way as my mother did. And it's something I'm really struggling with right now. So if you turn around and you say to me, no, I just can't support you with that, that already triggers me. So yeah, just when you're dealing with people who have experienced trauma, just take note of their triggers and try not to go in that direction. If you've not gone through trauma yourself, or you feel differently about shared experiences, it can be hard to understand why your friend or family member can't seem to move on. It's understandable to wish things could improve. Obviously, we want things better for the people that we love. But it's important not to blame them or put pressure on them to get better without the time and support they need. Try not to take over. If you're worried about someone, it's understandable to want to help them, and you can feel frustrated if they disagree about what to do. What you need to know here is they need to do what they're ready to do, because some things can feel too overpowering, and you don't want them to be feeling more powerless. You want them to feel stronger. So when they're ready to do something, let them do it. And you can turn around and say, look, I'm here for you, and when you're ready to take the next step, we'll do it together. Respect, respect, respect. Respect their privacy. Don't share details of what they've gone through unless you have their permission. Don't use it as fodder for gossip. It's not right. It's unethical. It's cruel. Just don't do it. This doesn't mean keeping everything to yourself and not getting support, though. If your friend's experience and helping them is affecting you, you can speak to a counsellor to get help for yourself. That is absolutely fine, but just don't use it as fodder for gossip. Help them find support. If you want to, you could help them find further support. For instance, look, I'm a support leader for SADAG, and the information for SADAG is always in my description box. You can go there, you can speak to a counsellor via one of the call lines. They can direct you to give you ideas on how to support your friend, your family member. And I think that's really important, to have those numbers close to you. When they are ready, then they can speak to a counsellor. Last but not least, look after your own mental health. Like I said, if this experience has been troubling for you, or you found it difficult to cope with, you can speak to a counsellor. Call one of the hotlines I have in the description box. Chat to a counsellor. They can always give you extra advice. Up your self-care. Get your friend to maybe do a few things with you if they're up to it, because then you'll be healing together. I hope that you enjoyed these few tips and that they are helpful to you and you have a little bit more insight into helping somebody with trauma. If this is the subject that you want to know more about, specifically more childhood trauma, do follow my channel. I would absolutely love your subscription. Hit the notification bell to know when videos are live. I post videos on Sunday and Wednesday. Sunday videos are more light-hearted and just life videos, vlogs, maybe a product I want to review. And Wednesday evenings will be my mental health videos. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, remember to pause for self-care.